Hello and welcome. I'm Robyn Smith with the Healthy Relationships Sisterhood Facebook group and Conscious Thriving Relationships. And thanks for joining me tonight. We are going to look at the 10 tips or top 10 tips to having a healthy relationship and a sustainable long-term relationship. So I got inspired to do this recently because my husband and I just celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary, and it feels like a big milestone for us. And also in 2 months, it'll be 20 years that we've been together. And we're both just so happy with our progress because we didn't know that we would last this long. We couldn't see into the future very easily, but we knew we wanted to say yes to our union. And lo and behold, 20 years later, we're going strong and we're having a great time. And we feel closer than ever before. Thank goodness, right? Because we don't want to feel further than ever before. But we've really, had to do our part. We've had to do some work to get to this place, to heal some areas that were painful, to understand each other, to get over some humps that were difficult. Like all relationships, it's not simple, it's complex, and everybody has their stuff that they come in with. And so we all have to be willing to bend and flex to make the relationship work. And so these are some of the top tips that I have are related to this, that there is a need to do your part, right? Your part on the inside in order to show up for your partner and the relationship as a whole. So let's look at my top 10 tips, and I'm pulling up my notes on that. So the first, and this is a great one that I learned right away from Patrick, is don't sweat the small stuff. And Patrick is my husband. So don't sweat the small stuff, right? We know this phrase and it seems basic, and yet it's easy, especially for those of us who are caught up in the details and tend to be, like for women especially, I hear this from my clients, that the women are more particular about things like the certain way to load the dishwasher, or picking up after yourself in the bathroom, or whatever it might be. So we might have the things that we feel more attached to and being a certain way. And of course, the problem is that not everybody sees things the same way. So when we have this kind of attachment, then we are likely to get frustrated and disappointed when we're not getting what we want around that. So not sweating the small stuff, being willing to let it go, let it roll off your back when it's not perfect, it's not exactly as you like. And for me, that was really important because I could nag, I could point out, what's wrong, I could blame, and then that would just cause more, conflict between us. And that's no fun. You don't want to feel that because then it creates distance. And especially, you don't want to feel conflict on a regular basis because it creates more distance and resentment over time. So important to know, as they say, pick your battles, right? To choose what feels important enough to bring forward, to discuss, to complain about, whatever it is. And what is better to let go of. So that's number one. Number two, and these aren't in any particular order, but some of you saw my email today, so I'm going with these top 5, and then I'm going to share my other top 5. So the second one is practicing acceptance for the things you cannot change. And this is similar to not sweating the small stuff, but it's not just not sweating it and letting it go. It's actually accepting what you can't change. So there might be patterns that your partner has, or even beliefs that your partner has that are really different from yours, different values. And when we have a lot of different values, that can make it really difficult to, walk hand in hand forward in life. But if it's just a couple, then there really, at least I have found, there can be a way to move through that. So one example, and this, for some of you might seem small, but it was a big one for me, where Patrick has had a lot of negative experiences with insurance companies. And, raise your hand or say yes in the comments if that's you have that experience too. Like, it sucks having to work with insurance and they don't pay you back and whatever it might be. So he was kind of very against getting health insurance and getting life insurance. And that was scary for me for a long time, because it's like, he's a lot older. He's 13 years older than me, and we don't have kids. And so I would scare myself with the possibility, like, God, something could happen to him and I could be left with all the, burden of the financial responsibilities, or something could happen to him and we won't be able to afford to take care of him. So that would come up on a regular basis, and I would feel anxious and scared and angry, and he wasn't going to change. Actually, there was some changes. That he did end up getting a basic health insurance, and for a while we had life insurance, but he let it lapse, and so then it was just too expensive to get it again. So anyway, this is my example for one area where it was really hard for me to accept, but ultimately it wasn't worth breaking up over. So I needed to just, okay, if I'm going to be with Patrick, I need to accept that he may not have health insurance or life insurance, and I have to deal with that and deal with my own anxiety about that. And so that was hard, but it was worth it to me, and luckily he's come a little towards me on that, and now he is covered. So phew. But raise your hand or put a yes in the comment if you can relate to something like that, and give your example, if you're willing, to what that area is for you, where you've learned to accept that difference and make it at least something you can live with, and not something you need to keep arguing and fighting about. So my next one is regularly appreciate each other. And this is huge, because people need appreciation. And we've talked about this here before. People need to know that they matter. They need to be acknowledged for their contribution. And it's easy when we're in a longer term relationship to take each other for granted. So put a yes in the comment if you have felt taken for granted, or you've forgotten to appreciate your partner and they've complained about that. So we've learned through these conversations that we both require, at least desire, appreciation from each other. And you may have heard of the 5 love languages, and how there's different ways you can show appreciation: through gifts, through touch, through words of appreciation are a few examples. So it's important to have a conversation with your partner about that, and to discuss, like, how do you like to be appreciated? What works for you? And so that you can try and meet them where they want to be met, so they can feel seen and acknowledged. So we all need that, and it sometimes people think, oh, that's just too petty, but it's not. I just need to tell you that most adults, and of course children, need that to feel a certain kind of connection, and to feel like valued in their relationships. So take that to heart. That's something I teach about a lot deeper in my Rock Your Relationship Immersion program. But just to say that for now, to keep it simple here, practice giving your partner appreciation regularly, like at least daily, and see what happens. All right, so another one is regular intimacy. And it can be sexual intimacy or other types of intimacy. And it's in each relationship, we need to sort through, like, how often is enough for each person, what kind of frequency we need, either with sexual connection or other types of intimacy. And we try to do our best to meet that. And because why else are we here in a love relationship, if not because we want some intimacy, in addition to someone to walk side by side with us. So really important to honor that, to do your best to at least meet in the middle with your partner around those needs for intimacy. Because when one person is dissatisfied, which again is super common in relationships, that one person is not satisfied around intimacy, it creates a rift between you. You feel more distant, more frustrated, resentment, and sometimes that is a reason that people have affairs, or seemingly a reason, or break up. So regular intimacy is essential for staying connected and for feeling connected. And again, for each person, the type of intimacy may differ, so it's up to you to sort through what type of intimacy do you need to stay connected. Sometimes one person needs more cuddles and touch, and another person needs more sex. So find that place where you're both getting those needs met. Okay, my fifth is stay up to date with each other with frequent check-ins. And we've talked about this here before also. And what I mean by that is check in, not just about like the to-do list, as we might say, the business of the relationship, but also with, how are you? What's going on in your life? Not only how is your day, but how do you feel about that? So check in on a more intimate, emotional level. Times where you set aside to really get to know each other. How do you feel about that? What did you think about that? If you've had an experience together, how was that for you? So these types of conversations where it's another kind of intimacy, but it's staying up to date with each other. So you don't let a lot of time pass in between times where you check in. You are regularly curious and interested in your partner, and ideally that's mutual, so you have these times together, that you make it a priority. So let me know in the comments if you're watching now, or if you're watching the replay. You can put #replay. Now that we've been through the first 5, name the one that you feel like you really want to turn up the volume on for yourself in your relationship, that you need to adjust for yourself. So put that in the comment below. And also feel free to ask any questions, and I'm happy to come around and respond. So let's continue. Actually, I am going to look in the comments, but I am not having access to that right now. So, okay, I will come back to that later. All right, so coming to the 6th point, that, again, in no particular order, top 10 healthy relationship habits or tips that I would recommend for anyone who wants to have a healthy and sustainable long-term relationship. So responsibility, and what I mean by that is taking full responsibility for your part in any issues or problems that arise in the relationship, as well as for the results that come from those. So what might that look like? It might look like recognizing and verbally saying, you're right, I did that, and you might apologize if that feels appropriate, or you might at least acknowledge how you showed up. I was angry when I came in, and that's why I was picking on you, or I was feeling frustrated, and so I had to walk away. But just really naming and taking responsibility for your behavior and not making it your partner's fault. It's really common, actually, for people to say something like, well, it's because of you that I acted that way, right? Or you made me, angry. But honestly, no one can make you angry. No one can make you sad. No one can make you act any certain way. So they can certainly have influence over how you act and how you feel, but they cannot cause your feelings or behaviors. So once you get in alignment with that, and you get on board with that, that's a game changer, huge game changer for me and for everybody that I've seen. And this is an important teaching. And it was for me because I was a big blamer, and I just grew up around blame, and so it was easy to just go, it's your fault, and that's why, because of you, and and no one likes to be blamed. So when we do that, when we're not taking responsibility, we create more distance again, and we're more likely to have conflict. So the more you take full responsibility for your actions and your behaviors, your words, then the more harmony you're going to have between you and your partner. Boom. So put a yes if you're on board with that and you're willing to take some responsibility, or 100%, ideally 100% responsibility for yourself. So put 100% in the comments. All right. So moving down the list is number 7, feedback. And feedback, what I mean by that is being open to feedback, being receptive to hearing, hey, when you said that, I felt upset, or hey, even if someone says something blamey, like you're being, or critical, say like you're being kind of, bitchy right now, or, you're being so impatient or whatever, they're pointing out something that they're seeing in you. And the first, response is going to be likely to be defensiveness, like, no, I'm not, or how could you say that? Or that's mean, or, to attack back. We talked about defensiveness here recently. When you're open to feedback, you're not doing that. Instead of the attack back or the defending and the wall that goes up, you would instead receive that information and really take it in, regardless of if it was an attack or a blame. And I'm not saying if you're if you're in danger, of course you're gonna protect yourself. But if you're not in danger, and if someone's honestly giving you feedback, then you want to do your best to receive it and respond consciously, respond with awareness and consideration. Like, oh, thank you for that. I don't know why I was acting that way, or getting curious about why you did what you did, or why you said what you said. And that's gonna, again, create an atmosphere of openness and connection, instead of the disconnection that happens, and the distance, again, that happens when you are being defensive. Yes? Okay. So let's move on. There's so many great things one can do in a relationship, but I am, again, just picking my top 10 out of probably at least 20. So another one is feelings, your emotions. And so many of us, don't have a clear sense of what we're feeling all the time. We haven't been educated around our emotions and what emotion feels like, how they're different. So some of this takes some training, and this is part of what I teach, again, in my Rock Your Relationship immersion. As we look at our emotions, we differentiate them and how they appear in the body and how to express them. But for starters, for you, if you don't have some kind of training, then you want to just be curious about your emotions, and also be willing to express them, again, without blaming someone for causing them. So when we are able to own our emotions, like, oh, that's mine and that's not yours and you didn't make it happen. And also when we're able to give space for our emotions to feel them, like allowing it to be okay to be sad or angry or scared, especially the three most difficult core emotions, then the more, again, intimacy we're going to create. Because when we shut down our emotions, or walk away from our emotions, or judge our emotions as a bad thing, that's like shutting down a core piece of who we are. And emotions are a key component of intimacy. So you can't be intimate if you don't connect with your emotions. So owning and expressing and allowing your emotions is key for healthy connection. Boom, so important. So raise a hand, yes to emotions. You can put that in the comments if you're with me. Moving on to another of my favorites is, and I sort of touch on this when I talked about being open to feedback, it's really kind of the flip side of that coin, which is humility, is having humility. I love humility, and it's something that most of us can benefit from cultivating, because humility is again like pulling that wall down and just allowing yourself to be seen and vulnerable. It's the ego that puts up the defense and that puts up the personality and tries to be right and all that stuff that we do that creates distance. So humility it allows for that openness to feedback that I was talking about. Humility allows for you to apologize. When you're humble, you recognize you're right. I made a mistake. You're right. That wasn't kind of me. You know what? I wish I had said that differently. Let me try that now. I want to be better. How can I be better? These are examples of being humble in a relationship. So it is so valuable, because it's like taking a step towards your partner and letting them know that you want closeness, you want to repair whatever happened, you want harmony. And so when you're doing the opposite of that and like holding on to like I'm right and you're wrong and we can't fix this and it's all your fault, all that stuff is like more distance, more conflict, and it doesn't get you any closer to what most of us, I don't know anyone who doesn't want, intimacy and connection. Even though it's scary, we all want it on the deepest level. And so these teachings, these practices are going to get you there, and you just need to practice. And I'll say more about that in a moment. But first, the last one that I want to mention tonight, hopefully I've given you the right number, is trust. So trust is key. And that one's not simple because trust has to be earned. It's not something that you even should automatically just have, like you trust everybody, because we've learned not everyone is trustworthy. So they have to be worthy of trust. They have to earn our trust. And how do you earn trust? Over time, right? Experiences over time, repetitive positive experiences. Oh, you follow through with your agreements. Oh, you show up when you say you're going to show up. Oh, you're kind to me. So then we start to open a little bit more each time. And that's why, you know, it's wise to date someone before you marry them, right? It's wise to build a connection and that creates trust so that you can relax. Because without trust, it's pretty hard to relax. Trust is required to feel safe. Safety requires trust, however you want to put it. When we feel safe, then we can let our guard down, we can relax and open ourselves up to whatever is available to us. But when we don't feel that safety, we're going to contract, right? We're going to have our guard up. We're going to be like vigilant and looking around and wondering, you know, when's the next shoe going to drop? Who's going to hurt us? So it's so important to develop trust, and trust is going to be key for you to have a loving and harmonious and healthy relationship for yourself. Okay, so let me know how that feels to hear all that, what's happening for you right now as you listen. Are you excited? Are you scared? Are you curious? Put that in the comment. And again, feel free to raise a hand. I'm going to look for any questions that have come up. If I can find here it is. Okay. Not seeing anybody yet, but I've got that you're here. That's great. And so I know even though you might not be with me live and you're watching the replay, I know not everyone can make it live, then put #replay and put a question in the comment. Okay, so let's come back to just the overall bit of a summary for you. The importance of cultivating these qualities, all to lead towards greater connection and intimacy in your relationship. And in all relationships, right? In each relationship, you might have different levels of intimacy, different kinds of relationships. But in general, the more we have these in place, you're going to find more ease in your relationship, more harmony, more joy, more opening to depth and connection. So these are, like I said earlier, kind of like things you can practice. But also, if you find that it's super hard for you to implement one or more of these, then there's some kind of block there. There's some kind of old patterning. There's some kind of fear usually that's in the way of that ability to open in that way, either whether it's, you know, with humility or taking responsibility or accepting what is. And that's where I want to encourage you to get some support. That's why I do the work that I do, is because if it was all this simple, you could just get it out of a book, right? But it's not, or off a video. It's not that simple, because we have our issues that are in the way of this acceptance, of this relaxing into the openness or trust or humility and responsibility, or allowing our feelings. So it helps to work with someone like me, who's a relationship coach or a therapist or whoever you're drawn to, who can support helping you with the obstacles that are in the way of your ability to implement these practices. So right now my coaching practice is full, but I am considering opening space for couples coaching. So, and that would be in a group format. So if you're interested in that, contact me, put a message below, put yes to couples coaching, and I can reach out to you. My vision, and it's a new vision and I'm excited about it, is to have a small group of couples who I can support, where both parties can come together and learn and practice different techniques and understand one another more, and have, you know, my support in that. There'll be group coaching involved, as well as training and practices. So if that interests you, definitely put a message below in the comments or reach out to me privately through email or private message, and I will put you on the list for when I get that group together. It's going to be awesome. All right, everybody, thanks for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.